If you watched last week's video, you'll remember I talked very fondly about a little game called Tiny Glade. And if you've been with the channel for a while, you'll probably also know that I've been hotly anticipating this game's release for some time now. Well, that time has come, and I jumped onto Steam to pick it up the second that it released, because this is hands down one of my most anticipated games of the year. Why, you ask? Well, I guess you'll just have to keep watching and find out. The two-person team at Pouncelight describes Tiny Glade as a chill, little diorama builder where you can doodle anything from whimsical cottages to spooky haunted ruins. They elaborate that there is no real progression, there are no goals, and there aren't any quests. It's a time sink through and through. It's a low-stress, no-thought-required sandbox for you to explore your cozy cottage aesthetic, or see if you can create the most regal castle in the land. Their goal with this game seems to be, based on what they've included in their press materials, to create a calm, cozy, chill space where you can escape to after a long day for a bit of creative freedom. They talk at length about how their aim is to make a game that makes you feel calm and serene, and kind of like a kid making a sandcastle on the beach with water lapping at your feet. As far as vibes go, they nailed it. They give you 4 different locations that you can build in, and each one has its own unique look and feel. Probably my favorite is the more fall-inspired location, but they have something for everyone. Winter Wonderland, spooky haunted graveyard, or bright and happy summer field. No matter what you're feeling on that particular day, they've got you. And that's just where it all starts. From there, it only gets better. They give you a frankly unbelievable amount of control over your creations, and somehow manage to make sure that no matter what you do, you can't help but make a beautiful little diorama. And that's no small feat either. The entire reason massive companies like Apple give for not allowing their users control over things like accent colors or app icons has historically been because the average person doesn't know how to make something look good. And so they keep a very tight grip on what you're allowed to customize and how. Tiny Glade, however, lays bare exactly why that's not just wrong, but lazy. Now, I'm well aware that it's not a direct comparison. Making a game about building procedurally generated castles is quite far from the graphic design that goes into something like icons. However, I think the ethos absolutely is transferable. It would have been incredibly easy for Pouncelight to take the more overbearing approach and guide your experience to make sure that your creations are always adhering to their predefined and tested good aesthetics, or just give you all the controls with no guide rails and little if any explanation. But they didn't. They took the much harder route of giving you just enough control that you can experiment and discover for yourself, but making sure to design around all the potential pitfalls. And they absolutely nailed it. I won't say it's impossible, but it's very difficult to make something in Tiny Glade that looks genuinely bad. And that's not because we're all extremely competent architects with a passion for Romanesque or Gothic architecture. No, it's because both Anastasia and Tomasz are clearly incredibly skilled at their craft. And, 15 years in the industry will do that, but my point is that I'm extremely impressed with how they were able to balance control and guide rails in order to give you both the satisfaction of actually genuinely making creative decisions, but also making sure that you don't get frustrated with your own incompetence. And that's something many professional software packages could learn a lot from. Generally speaking, programs like SolidWorks or the Adobe apps assume that you already know how to use them, so they don't bother trying to design the program to assist you in your job. And Tiny Glade could absolutely be classified as a CAD program. Sure, it doesn't output STL, STEP, OBJ, or any other professional file format, but don't be mistaken, it's absolutely a design process which is aided by a computer. So the fact that they were able to make a program which any schmuck on Steam can pick up and get the amazing feeling of creation out of is incredible in my eyes. And this team absolutely deserves a huge amount of recognition, and I'm optimistic that they'll get it. It made the front page of Steam day one, for God's sake. But that's enough of the overall pitch for this game. Let's get into what it is you actually do. We'll start with what I think is one of the coolest features in the game, and the one that propelled it into existence in the first place: the procedurally generated walls, and, well, everything else. That is the game's selling point, a wholehearted focus on procedural generation. But before we talk about how the game actually does that, I'll do a quick rundown of what procedural generation actually is, in case you're unaware. Essentially, it's a process where a ton of assets are created and an algorithm decides how to place them in the game world. It's more complicated than that, and I'm sure I have any industry professionals wincing at the screen with that description, but I think it gets the point across. Basically, there's a library of assets which the algorithm can pull from in order to fill a space that the designer tells it to. Like if you want to place a forest, instead of placing every single tree yourself, you can just leave all of that to the algorithm and tell it where you want the actual forest. And that's the basic system that this game is built around. But they've added the loving twist of adding flair and personality to the generation. I would call what they've made here something like cozy procedural generation. In many games, procedural generation is really more of a time saver than anything else. It's a means to an end, and if you ask any gamer, they'll probably say something along the lines of, it's cool tech, but it's not often that it's done well, and it's usually just a marketing gimmick if they mention it at all. Well, in Tiny Glade, that's not the case. The pizzazz and finesse with which Anastasia and Tomasz were able to create this system is frankly astonishing. I've never seen a game like this before, and part of that is because a lot of games focus on using procedural generation to make the final product. To them, it's a tool, not a mechanic, so it's always hidden away on the back end, out of sight to the player. So bringing it into the limelight is quite a bold move, and it shows very clearly the passion that Anastasia has for their craft. And I think if another team had done it, they probably would have fallen flat on their faces. But the clear passion and drive that these two have for the art of procedural generation is on full display here. Most of this video is honestly just going to be me praising the team because I think the gameplay speaks for itself. These seamless transitions are some of the most satisfying animation I've seen in a game in my entire life. The attention to detail is outstanding, and the ability to create such a cozy atmosphere should not go unmentioned. There aren't many, if any, other games that I think I could sit and watch without the need for any actual content, but this is exactly what I get from Tiny Glade. One of my favorite interactions is adding windows. The way they nestle into the wall and snap together to form a totally new style of window is inspired, and giving you multiple period styles to choose from expands your options immensely. Now, to be clear, I love this game, and that won't be changing anytime soon, but it is still early days, and while for me this game as it stands now is absolutely all I need, there is room for expansion should they choose that they want to do that. Some things I think could be a good addition would be the ability to export your model as an STL file or something that you can then either print yourself or send off to get printed by a service. I think that would take this game to the next level and open it up to an incredible potential for monetization if they worked with, like, miniature companies or something to license their models so you can use them in the game. Now, to be clear, I have no idea how possible that would be. For all I know, none of these models are by any means printable. In fact, from what I understand about game development, they probably aren't. So while I think it would make a cool feature, I wouldn't hold your breath. On a slightly more feasible front, I think adding the ability to decorate interiors would make for a really great future update. Even if it was something as simple as adding the ability to deliberately place supporting objects like chairs, tables, and hay bales. As it is now, the only way to place those is to have a pathway intersect a wall or a building, and then the game decides where it wants to place all of that. And while I think they do a phenomenal job, it would be nice to be able to, say, place a pile of hay out in the middle of a field or something like that. But, I mean, honestly, other than that, I don't have anything more that I would want out of this game. I thought I might feel a bit constrained by the build space, but I actually think it's just about the perfect size. Not so small that you feel cramped like in the demo, but not so big that it feels like a huge ordeal to fill. Oh, I almost forgot to mention, they also have a really brilliant daily build option as well, where they give you a starter template and you go off of that. It's perfect for if you want to spend some time in the game but aren't sure what you want to make. And then, after you're done with your little creation, they have a full-fat camera mode where you can choose from a bunch of great presets or make your own look. You can change the lighting and switch between 4 different camera modes: your typical locked-off camera, a first-person view, which lets you walk around at eye level, a free-floating, almost drone shot style camera, and a top-down map style camera. This game is honestly just such a great time, and while no game is perfect, at just $15, which for those of you who watched last week's video will remember is half of what I was expecting it to be, I absolutely cannot recommend this game enough. If you want a game where you feel like you're making a Bob Ross painting, but then you can go walk around it, this is the game for you. It's the perfect game for the end of the day when you get back from work and you just want to unwind. Maybe put on an audiobook or a podcast and just chill out making beautiful little cottages or castles or whatever you want. This is peak cozy game for me, and it's a really great sign to me that the cozy games genre is absolutely evolving and moving past the few staple mechanics that have been proven successes. And I want to reiterate that I don't think that those staples are in any way inherently bad, but I think they start to lose their luster when so many games come out doing the same exact thing, just with their own twist. So seeing the genre open up with more ways to make a cozy game is really exciting. All in all, this is a fierce contender for my game of the year. I have nothing bad to say about it, and while I'm sure that there are people who could find something negative about it, I'm totally entirely blind to that. I guess if I had to pick one thing, it would be the fact that it's not the most fun to play on the Steam Deck, but that's just a matter of controls, and I don't think that would be too hard to fix if they wanted to. But this is just such a lovely and calming time, and if that sounds like at all what you're looking for, I highly recommend Tiny Glade. $15 for this is an absolute steal, and if you're still on the fence, I'm sure it'll go on sale for around $6 to $7 at some point. But I cannot recommend it enough, and I think the devs deserve every single dollar they're charging for it. This is an absolute feat of game design, and I hope you all love it just as much as me if you do choose to try it out. If you do, make sure you leave a comment down below, and while you're at it, if you could leave a like if you liked this video, a dislike if you disliked it, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss a future video. I would really appreciate that. But even if you don't, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this video out of all of the videos that you could have chosen. Other than that though, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great, cozy fall day. I hope to see you here next time, and as always, happy gaming.